Once upon a time, there lived a heroic bear called Banjo, a rather loud bird called Kazooie, and an unpleasant witch called Gruntilda.
A lot of people have a misconception of what happened during the development that made the game turn out so terrible. After putting in years of research and interviewing the majority of the staff at Rare and Microsoft at the time, I have put together the complete, true story of the downfall of Banjo Kazooie, Nuts and Bolts. Brothers Tim and Chris Stamper were the founders and main developers at Rare before the Microsoft's takeover. Both Tim and Chris had originally graduated in chemistry, but started game development as a hobby and wound up with it as a career. After the Microsoft takeover, Tim and Chris found themselves with a lot more free time on their hands, since there were now so many more people involved in development and in making decisions. They got back into chemistry during their free time. Tim and Chris began experimenting with psychedelic drugs and decided they wanted to create the perfect, euphoric psychedelic drug. As work started on Nuts and Bolts, and Tim and Chris saw the direction the game was headed in, they buried themselves in their drug development in order to keep their minds off of what they saw as a developing disaster of their baby franchise. Workers and friends at the office noticed that Tim and Chris appeared more and more distracted until one day they returned to the office in the best mood they had ever seen them in. Tim and Chris claimed that they had perfected the drug. Not only was it the perfect psychedelic experience, but it also opened up a gateway to another dimension. 15 minutes after taking the drug, there would be a bright doorway that would appear, followed by the Rygars, interdimensional beings of infinite wisdom, revealing themselves all throughout the world. Their friends at the office dismissed this as crazy, while their superiors at Microsoft became worried that they may not be capable of handling their positions anymore. As the game was going through beta testing, Tim and Chris got their first real look at what the game had become. Disgusted with the game, they decided to spike the water supply in the office building with copious amounts of their drug and seal open the doorways to the Rygar's dimension. As the office workers drank the tainted water, the drug escaped from the building's water supply and into the water supply of the general public. The drug was self-replicating and eventually found its way around the entire world. The Rygar revealed themselves to the population and touched people on their foreheads, revealing to them the true nature of time, which was not linear, but happening all at the same moment in space. I type out my script to what would be the explanation of everything that ever was and ever would be. As I attempt to explain to you what Thornberry the Rygar Prince whispers into my ear while I sit on the couch, I finally accept the weight of the universe and the fact that we are all doomed to the same fate of playing Nuts and Bolts and experiencing that terribleness, the horror. What's that, Thornberry? You want to speak to the people? You want to explain it to them as they sit watching this video the same moment that I both type it, create it, and re-watch it to make sure there are no blatant errors? The problem here, you see, is that I am
Thornberry the Rygar Prince, and I am currently sodomizing your mind hole with my psychedelic vibrations. Feel my vibrations.